Hello and welcome to Larry Has Opinions. It's taken me a few years, but eventually I got around to reading Normal People by Sally Rooney. A very popular, very hyped book as well, that no doubt a lot of you will already have read. But in case you're not familiar with the story, it follows these two teenagers who live in the west of Ireland and who get involved with each other in this sort of friends with benefits arrangement. But they come from very different backgrounds because Connell is a working class kid who lives in this council estate with his single mum. And Marianne is from a very wealthy family, not the nicest of families possibly, but still a very privileged background. And she lives in this mansion that is cleaned by Connell's mum. But crucially, their social status reverses a little bit because Connell is actually very popular with his schoolmates. He plays football, he's quite handsome, and he's very much one of the lads and very well integrated in that school setting. While Marianne is seen as this awkward and shy kid who is a bit aloof and she's not really well integrated with the rest of her schoolmates. And we follow their relationship / friendship over the years. And there's this constant, will they, won't they get together? They get to meet and see other people, but then they get close again and apart again. And there's this sort of rinse and repeat narrative that carries on over the years. It seems to be a slightly polarizing book as well, because some people really love it. And Sally Rooney has become pretty much an icon of the millennial generation from that perspective. But also a lot of people just find it a bit boring because, in fairness, that there's not that much that happens in the book. Particularly, there's not that much that is out of the ordinary experiences that a lot of us would have on a day-to-day basis, with some exception, to be fair. And it does rely to a large extent on miscommunication as well between the main characters, which I know a lot of people don't like. And I think particularly Americans might struggle a little bit with that because perhaps they're more used to a direct and blunt type of communication, but I actually found it quite realistic for an Irish setting, that showing that struggle of the two main characters to show their true feelings and intentions during the story. And I have to say that all in all, I found following that constant doing and undoing of that relationship quite mesmerizing to follow. And Rooney's writing is very much in tune with the story. I found it quite mellow and monotone without a lot of peaks and troughs. It's very peculiar, very distinctive as well. She doesn't use quotation marks, which I know will irritate a few people, and also a lot of colloquialisms as well, a lot of or something, anyway, that sort of things that people say in their speech but don't necessarily write down is definitely very much incorporated in her writing. Again, it might not be something that works for everyone, but I thought it was relatively well suited for the type of story that she's telling. I also very much enjoyed the Irish setting as well. Personally, it resonates with me as well, having lived in Ireland as well. But also, you feel quite immersed in that reality, and the story is, for the most part, split between the west of Ireland, but also Dublin. And it's very interesting to see as well the contrast between the two realities and how that impacts the lives of the two main characters. There's a small bits of the story as well that take place abroad, but for the most part, it really feels like a very Irish story to a large extent. The point of view in the narration flips between the two main characters as well, and that allows the reader to have a full perspective onto the two main characters at all time. And I feel that their intentions and thoughts and feelings are always very well fleshed out, very realistic, and very well expressed in the book, which I thought was very well executed. The secondary characters, I have to say, were a bit more hit and miss for me. Some were definitely well realized, but others felt a bit more of a caricature. For instance, Marianne's family, especially her mum, felt a bit over the top in the way she was described. Also, one of Marianne's boyfriend, again, felt a bit much of a caricature, I have to say. Still, I wouldn't say that necessarily affected the story overall to a large extent, but I think there's definitely something that could have been better executed there. And since Sally Rooney is a self-proclaimed Marxist and feminist, I was slightly afraid that there would be some really heavy-handed commentary in the book, which would typically annoy me slightly. But I have to say I was pleasantly surprised because there's definitely a lot of themes that are explored and weaved within the story in a more subtle way and very well executed. And there wasn't like any sort of really in your face sort of commentary. So I really appreciated that. And there's also like even a couple of sequences where she seems to be poking fun as well at the irony of some of that analysis. For instance, there's a scene where two women who are from very, very privileged backgrounds and never really worked a day in their lives, they're questioning Connell's male privilege when Connell is a working class kid who's working in summers to pay for his studies and all of that. So compared to them, like from a very disadvantaged background, and they're kind of coming up with his male privilege to kind of show the irony of some of that dynamics, that things are not always as easy as they seem, that reality can be quite complex. So I quite actually like the nuance that Rooney showed in different parts of the story, and it wasn't as like obvious and in your face as I was perhaps afraid it could be. So as I mentioned, and I suppose that the title of the book suggests itself, it's a very ordinary story, and that might explain why it really resonated with a lot of people. Although I have to say that when it comes to the sex lives of some of the characters, there's a couple of things that I don't want to spoil for you, but definitely it might be less ordinary, and a lot of readers would not necessarily have exposure to that sort of thing. Still, all in all, I have to say this exploration of how friendships and relationships can straddle the social divides and the challenges that poses was very effective. But also this analysis of how we all carry our baggage from the past, small and large traumas from our childhoods, from our families, and how all these can reverberate into our present lives, and all these regrets and insecurities that we all have, were really portrayed in a very effective way by Rooney, I have to say, in a very subtle way with a lot of nuance. And also how circumstances that are very serendipitous to a large extent can dictate your day-to-day life and your social circles. There's a couple of instances in the book where you can kind of tell that some of the characters will go, why are these people my friends? Like, how did we get to this specific point in time? And then you can see that some of these friendships and some of these relationships kind of break down, and you kind of question the foundations of those relationships in the first place and how you got to that point in the first place. So would I recommend the book overall? I think so. If you're looking for a fast-moving sort of story, this might not be for you. But if you're interested in this exploration of an ordinary relationship between these two ordinary characters, it's definitely well executed. I found myself quite interested and engaged and invested into the two main characters and their relationship and their lives. Do I fully get the hype? I'm afraid I don't. It's a good book, but is it head and shoulders over everything else I've read over the last few years? Not really. So I guess there's only one way for you to find out, is to read it yourself if it sounds like something you might be interested in. So for that reason, my rating for this book is 8 out of 10. I hope you guys like this video. Please give me a thumbs up. Join our Discord if you want to discuss this further with our community, and I'll see you the next time.